Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving deep into something most of us use every single day, but maybe don't think too much about: the rules of the beauty industry. We're going to pull back the curtain on the system that gets a product from a lab all the way to its spot on your bathroom shelf.
So have you ever really thought about it? What does it actually take for that face cream you love to make it into your hands? Well, it's way more than just mixing up some nice-smelling ingredients. There's this whole hidden world of regulations and safety checks, and they're all there to protect you. It's a pretty fascinating process, and I think by the end of this, you're gonna look at that moisturizer on your shelf in a whole new way.
So here's how we're gonna break it down. We're gonna follow the life of a cosmetic product from start to finish. First, we'll look at all the crucial steps that have to happen before it can even dream of hitting a shelf. Then, we'll figure out how to decode all that info on the label. After that, we'll jump into the world of advertising and see how companies are selling the dream. And finally, we'll see what happens when something does go wrong.
All right, let's dive right in. The journey always starts here, with the blueprint for safety. These are the absolute foundational rules that every single product has to follow. It's all about making sure what you put on your body is safe right from the very beginning.
You can think of it like a three-step safety gauntlet that every product has to run through. First, a company has to clearly define what the product even is. Second, they have to scrutinize every single ingredient. And finally, they have to guarantee that the finished product is safe. If they mess up any one of these steps, that product will never see the light of day.
Okay, so this first step might seem a little minor, but trust me, it changes everything. How a product is classified decides the entire set of rules it has to follow. For instance, a simple moisturizer that just makes your skin feel nice, that's a cosmetic. But what about an anti-dandruff shampoo? Because it's designed to treat a condition, it's actually considered a drug, and it has to follow a completely different, much stricter set of rules. So once they know what the product is, they have to deal with the ingredients. And let me tell you, it's not a free-for-all. There are entire lists of things that are flat out banned. Then there are other ingredients that are restricted. Things that are safe, but only up to a certain concentration. Even the pretty colors they use have to come from an approved list. It's basically a super controlled recipe book. So, when you boil it all down, after all those lists and rules and classifications, it all comes down to this one single, non-negotiable rule. The product absolutely must be safe for you when you use it like you're supposed to. This is the bedrock of everything.
Okay, so we've got a product that's been proven safe. Now what? How does it talk to you, the consumer? Well, that's where the label comes in. And it's so much more than just pretty packaging. It's your roadmap to what's inside the bottle.
The best way to think about this is like the nutrition label on your food. It's there for a reason. That ingredient list is absolutely essential, especially if you have allergies. The manufacturer info tells you exactly who stands behind this product. And those usage instructions, yeah, they're not just suggestions. They're a really important part of making sure the product actually works safely for you.
All right, the product is safe, the label is clear. Now comes the fun part, right? Selling it. We're stepping out of the lab and into the world of marketing. But even here, in the world of persuasion and pretty ads, there are some very strict rules to follow.
And this is where things get really interesting, because there's a fine line a company has to walk. A cosmetic can say it improves your appearance. See that? Reduces the appearance of fine lines. But it can't claim to actually change how your body works, like saying it eliminates wrinkles. That would make it a drug. The wording is so specific. Moisturizes is a cosmetic claim. Cures is a drug claim. Regulators watch this stuff like a hawk.
So if you see a claim like this, yeah, that's a huge red flag. Reversing the aging process, that's talking about a biological change, which would make this serum a drug, not a cosmetic. Advertising rules exist for this exact reason, to stop these kinds of wild, unproven promises, and make sure the dream they're selling is at least tied to reality.
But look, no system is perfect. So what happens if, after all those checks, something still goes wrong? This brings us to the last and maybe one of the most important parts of our journey, the safety net that exists after a product is already out there in the world.
The thing that kicks this whole safety net into gear is something called an adverse event. It's just a formal way of saying a bad reaction. It could be a small rash, a serious allergic reaction, anything really. It's the first signal flare that tells everyone something might be wrong with the product.
And this is something I really want you to remember. A company's job isn't done just because you bought their product. They have a responsibility to keep monitoring how it's doing out in the real world.
It's called post-market surveillance, and it's this continuous loop of feedback and accountability.
So how does that work? Well, it really comes down to two big things. First, you've got the product recall. That's like the emergency brake to pull the product off the shelves if it's potentially harmful. And the second is the system for reporting adverse events. And this is where you, the consumer, play such a huge role by letting companies and regulators know when there's a problem.
So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from defining the product, checking the ingredients, to the right labels, honest ads, and all the way to that safety net after you buy it, you can see it's this whole interconnected system. It's all these checks and balances designed for one big reason: your safety.
And look, the whole point of knowing this stuff isn't to get a science degree. It's about power. Knowledge is power, right? It turns you from just a buyer into a really informed consumer who can read a label, spot a sketchy claim, and know what to do if something goes wrong.
So, that's our tour through the world of cosmetic rules. And I'll leave you with this question. Next time you're in that beauty aisle with all this new knowledge, what's the first thing you're going to look for? The ingredient list? Who made it? The claims on the box? Thanks so much for hanging out with me today.